Here we are. Friends, if you are watching this as the recording and not the in-person, I have to warn you, I often preach from notes. So while the essence of the content from Sunday will be the same, it might be a little different. And you might not get everything that was there on Sunday, but you will get things that weren't there on Sunday. I can promise that. Thank you. I first read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo and delivered a sermon with its wisdom in it in 2016. That was before the pandemic, before my mother died, before my son was born. And what was true then continues to be. It is a challenge for me is my relationship with stuff. Anybody else? I come by it honestly. And thus, over the past few years, I've had to process many physical objects from my mother and my grandparents that are also laden with memory, sentimentality, and grief. All of us still touched by a depression mentality of needing to hold on to things out of fear of a time of scarcity and insecurity, of not being able to get those things when you need them. This month, as we reflect on grace, I think of someone who is flexible, forgiving, gracious, a gracious host. And my struggles with these often stem from my struggles with stuff. Now, there are many ways that you might want to better embody grace or struggle with something that you are holding on to that won't let you go. It certainly doesn't have to be stuff. It could be a grudge, like in our story today. It could be a belief, like in our reading. It could be a hurt, or a trauma, or a grief. It could be a belief or a judgment. It could be a coping mechanism that is no longer serving you, or something that you just can't put your finger on. I have found that Marie Kondo offers a metric that connects to our internal workings, a rational analysis of our relationship to the things we hold on to, a theology for tidying up. Now, the book has things that don't always work for me or for everyone. And as in all things human and in tidying up, keep what works for you and discard what doesn't. I'm excited to revisit this wisdom with you. It's perfect timing for reflecting on our month of grace, embodying and offering grace, and for spring cleaning. But why do this? Why do this if it's going to be a little uncomfortable or not fun? Well, my feeling is if I am so bogged down by stuff, if I'm so hampered, like the people in the story of Grudgeville today, that I can't look up, that I can't open my heart, then I can't be ready to greet or meet someone with hospitality, to offer my heart and my love and my care. I can't be ready to answer a call that comes to me, that I am being called to do this, to make the world better in this way. I can't do those things if I am so bogged down and burdened by stuff, whether it's beliefs or grief or physical stuff. And there's so many things going on taking up your bandwidth. You don't then have the ability to engage with life and your purpose that you want to do. So what does Marie Kondo say? Now, Marie Kondo says that the best way to choose what to keep and what to throw away is to take each item in one's hand and ask, does this spark joy? If it does, keep it. If not, dispose of it. This is not only the simplest, but also the most accurate yardstick by which to judge. I would disagree, although I like the idea of joy as a metric. But some of us don't necessarily have access to the feelings of joy, to know what joy is. Does this spark joy? She describes it as a lightness, as an enjoyment. But I would say let's at least start with not pain. If you touch this item and it has no source of pain or burden or guilt or trappings with the past, then that's a good thing to consider holding on to in your life. But if it is causing you pain, that's something to work on discarding. Marie Kondo says, the question of what you want to own or have as a belief is actually the question of how you want to live your life, the vision of how you want your life to be. She says we should be choosing what we want to keep, not what we want to get rid of. Keep only the things that speak to your heart, and then plunge in and discard all the rest. Also, this way you make more space for bringing new things into your life. She says in The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, but when we really delve into the reasons for why we can't let go of something, there are only two: an attachment to the past or a fear of the future. How does that connect to the things that are holding on to you, filling up your space? The space we live in should be for the person that we are becoming now, not for the person we were in the past. I also want to add to that, or for the person that your past self thought you were becoming or should become. For example, before I had Walter, when I was pregnant and feeling crafty, I picked up a bunch of new little crafty hobby type things. And now there is no time or space in my life for these things. I could keep saying, oh, I'll pick them up again. That might happen in a few years. Or I could make space for whatever crafty, joy-filled thing is there for me now, and not looking at a bin of things with sadness and regret. To let them go to someone else who it would give joy. Marie Kondo says, no matter how wonderful things used to be, we cannot live in the past. The joy and excitement we feel here and now are what is most important. That's the metric. That's the metric to hold on to and to use as your compass to guide you towards who you want to be and what you want to keep and take with you into your future. She gives some great advice on unused gifts. When people give you things, whether it's a gift or a hand-me-down, it's free. It was a gift of love, but it doesn't quite fit you. You don't quite like it. To remember that the person who gave it to you wanted you to receive their love, to know that they cared for you. That you can just receive that and say, thank you, gift, for giving me this love from my beloved. Now I can let go of the object. I don't need to keep it. And it also is a great way of reminding us that the people who gave it to us would not want us to be burdened by it, to know that this thing they gave us is bringing us down and making us feel stuck. And that's definitely the same with beliefs. I appreciate that while my grandmother and my mother's long-term butch partner passed on to me certain beliefs, they don't fit me now, and they are not who I want to be. They're quite biased. And I don't think that they would want me to feel burdened by their beliefs, but just to know that they loved me and that I can let the rest go. In recovery, particularly, they talk about a fearless moral inventory. And so as we're going through and clearing out our stuff, whatever that is, to look closely, to identify things that have fulfilled their purpose. Their time was served, and it just no longer is that time anymore. To be able to express your gratitude for the way these objects or beliefs or coping mechanisms served you, to express that gratitude, thank you, and to be able to then bid them farewell. I think about a piece of clothing that I loved so much, but it now is pilled and doesn't fit well and has a stain and really needs mending, and I haven't gotten around to it. And now this once source of joy has now become a source of burden that I'm not taking care of. That I can let it go, that I can say thank you and take it to Eco Park to be recycled. So this time of fearless moral inventory is really about examining our inner self as a rite of passage into our new life. And to honor that, because that's a big deal. Cleaning house like this is a big deal. When you come across something that you cannot part with, think carefully about its true purpose in your life. Has it already fulfilled its role? Why is it still in your space? Why did you bring it into your space to begin with? In order to truly cherish the things that are important to you, you must discard those things that have outlived their purpose. And to know that even if you have purchased something or brought something into your life that you thought would be exciting and wonderful, it's okay if you realize, oh, that's not me. That doesn't fit. We try on beliefs sometimes, like we try on outfits. Oh, maybe I'll be this kind of a person, and it doesn't fit. So rather than taking on shame or guilt feelings about that, to say, well, this was a great experiment. I learned a lot. I learned what fits me and what doesn't. So I can let that go and make space to try on something else. The process of facing and selecting our possessions, beliefs, or theologies can be quite painful. It forces us to confront our imperfections and inadequacies, and perhaps the foolish choices we made in the past. But it's okay to take those moments to appreciate our humanness and how we love people around us who are also human, that we are all learning and growing as we go. That is the nature of our reality and our being. And to not let visible mess or mental chaos distract us from finding our true purpose in the now, what's bringing us joy or where we're feeling called in life. Because if we don't deal with these things, well, there's three approaches. We could face them now, we could face them sometime in the future, or we could avoid them until the day we die and pass them on to be someone else's problem. That's a gift that keeps on giving. Marie Kondo says, as for you, pour your time and passion into what brings you most joy, your mission in life. I am convinced that putting your house in order will help you to find the mission that speaks to your heart. Life truly begins after you have put your house in order. To throw away what you no longer need is neither wasteful nor shameful. And I have to highly recommend Buy Nothing groups as a way of freeing your space of physical items and handing them on to people who would really love and appreciate them. I want to take a moment to address if you are, I wouldn't say you are holding on to items of trauma and grief, because often those items are holding on to you, and they are not things that you can just put down, unfortunately. I feel like with grief, perhaps the better metaphor is to think of it like composting, that this is something that is going to need time to settle, to break down a bit before it is in a state where it can nourish you again. And to appreciate that and be mindful of when the griefs come up. Oh, yes, we're going through this. That it is a process, that it's not something you have to let weigh you down necessarily, but something that you're carrying with you. And that's real. I also want to honor people who have experienced deep trauma. That is not something that you can necessarily get off of you or out of you. It is not something that will ever compost and then become nourishing for you. I know my family recently is watching Chernobyl on HBO. And this kind of trauma reminds me of nuclear waste. And like the people in that show, sometimes it takes that level of sacrifice that your work is really digging up and removing from your life the things that are tainted and toxic because of the trauma, to at least unenmesh yourself as best you can with the trauma, to put it aside, to at least be able to recognize that is not me, that happened to me, that will always be part of my story, but that does not have to define my choices in the future, does not have to define everything that I am. And if nothing else, to put it together and bury it in cement, and to promise that we will not pass this down to the next generation. Generational trauma is real. And sometimes we do our best. I know for me, it's recognizing that I have some biases and beliefs that I don't like them. I don't want my kids to have them, and doing my best to keep my mouth shut and not to share these with them. And hopefully they will grow beyond whatever toxic things might still be in my Chernobyl. I wanted to share one more story that I didn't have time for on Sunday, actually. When I was a child, I loved the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie and Sarah O'Connor. And so Sarah, the person the main character, she accidentally wished away her brother, and now she is trying to save him. And while she's going through the labyrinth, trying to get to her little brother, Toby, her half brother, which is why she wished him away in the first place, she falls under a spell, and she meets the garbage lady, this woman who is bent and haunched and covered in this almost like turtle shell of stuff. And the garbage lady's always pulling out these like magical, sentimental items with deep emotional attachments to remind Sarah of her childhood, to kind of trap her there, to think about her happy, happy time when she was a kid before she got a half brother. But it was a distraction from what was real, from the person she was growing into and wanted to be, a distraction from her growing love and her capacity to share it. She couldn't stay just being a child in that one space that was happy, because she would never grow. She would never have the capacity to love and build new relationships. And thankfully, she was able to see that and say, it's all junk. It's not real. I have to save Toby, which is just a really revelatory time in the movie where you realize who she's becoming, that love is more important than stuff in her own personal bubble of happiness. Friends, may we be able to see the things, whether they're beliefs, grudges, judgments, or actual stuff that is hurting us, that is trapping us and distracting us from what is real now. From love, care, healing, and wholeness that we are worthy of a new vision of a life of joy, not just for ourselves, for healing ourselves, tidying up our beliefs, etc., that we are that much more ready to see the beliefs, practices, and systems in our world that perpetuate pain and hinder joy. When we are that much freer to be able to act when love calls on us. That is our hope, to create a more just and loving community for all. May it be so, and amen.